Good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, to being here, and especially Florian to be here. Today, CIGAM will present the EdTalk. EdTalk is an educational talk that we organize monthly. Today, we would like to everyone to get to know a new kind of famous sort of occupation. It's like a management consultant. Florian, let me introduce Florian. Florian is a determined executive professional who studied in various countries. First of all, such as France, and then we do exchange in Singapore and NTU, and you have lots of experience in telecommunication, more than 12 years. From Nokia, and then lately you make really a big move, big decision to move to BCG. Florian has passionate about the field of telecommunication and has more lot of experience, and then the knowledge. You put a lot of knowledge into the practice. Recently, can you share a little bit of your experience in telecommunication, first of all?
Okay, my recent experience or my total experience, including my education?
Sure.
Well, it started, I think I got really interested in the field of telecom around 20 years ago when I first started, I think, in school, getting introduced to this topic. Then I started to pursue what could be called in Singapore polytechnics, which is a 2 years, let's say, technical kind of diploma school, providing a diploma after 2 years, and I branched out into a university specialized in engineering in CIGAM, but specifically focused in telecom. Then after graduating, I joined Alcatel at that time, which was some of the world's biggest telecom companies from France. And before getting acquired by Nokia, after that joining BCG a year and a half ago. So most of my professional life has been spent in the telecom industry after, let's say, following a heavy telecom curriculum, spanning over, around 5 years, basically.
So many people probably interested they have the industry a telecommunication. Most of the people, most of the students probably get familiar with being accountant, being engineer, and then lots of people would ask what do you do in telecommunication? Can you just answer this question?
Yeah, so that's a big topic. I think IT or other topics. Telecom, I think everybody's familiar with that now because that's basically what saved that helped the world continuing working during the COVID pandemic by allowing people to stay connected through various media, wired, wireless communication, so be it what you would know as 4G or fiber, things like that. So in a sense, that's just a way of connecting people via various media, be it over the air, via cable, via satellite. But in a sense, this is what telecom is. And then obviously there are multiple companies, multiple businesses in the value chain of telecom, some providing gear, some providing consulting services, some providing classical sales services. But this is basically, it's no different than any other industry, take, I don't know, railway or real estate. You would have various pieces in the value chain that sometimes are not centered around the actual engineering aspects of it. You have the business aspect, the consulting aspects, the financial aspects, even though the core business of a given company is telecom.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So to not go really deep in the telecommunication and try to get back on management consultant part as well. So this session today, we'll focus on 4 major topics. The first one would be academic experience in telecommunication. Okay. The second one would be comparing the Western and Eastern education. Third one would be professional career development.
Mhm.
And last but not least would be like how is it life working for like a BCG.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get to like the first one, academic experience in telecommunication. You already touched upon what it's like to study or work in a telecommunication. Lots of people would ask like, oh, telecommunication, is it about 4G, 5G? Or is it still like what about Starlinks? What about internet? What like any other things that like telecommunication do at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, telecom, it's an industry around which revolves like a lot of different actors. Telecom, and let's say um, as a basic aspect, then you would have basically the equipment maker, sometimes called OEM, and the operators that I mean, in Thailand, IIS, TrueMove, DTEC, and like other countries, buying from those suppliers. So you have the supplier and the operators. Around that, you have a whole galaxy of services company and financial services and procurement. But basically, we have the industry-specific functions and then the non-industry-specific function. Excuse me. Then in telecom on itself, telecom as as a global term will include basically the wired telecom aspects, something called IP routers, like the leader for it being Cisco, for example. So everything that is cable-based or using like optical fibers that carries all this traffic around the world, sometimes even undersea with submarine cables. So those are like the cable, let's say, base application. And you have also the wireless base application. So something where you cannot see any wire, like you're using 4G or 5G now. So the wireless applications, you cannot really see the cables. So those are the two big, let's say, domain in telecom today. But it's more and more expanding as 5G is coming over, and as we need telecom to achieve like various services, like for example, low latency trading that would require some very specific equipment. But telecom, 4G or 5G, that's basically what as a normal end user would be exposed to. But you could have your Wi-Fi router at your home. You could have like your internet connection in the office. You could have also the local network connection in an office as well. So all these things are part of this big like telecom, let's say, galaxy, which, like I mentioned, serves to connect people via various medium. I've also forgot like satellites is getting like even more interesting now with what SpaceX is doing to cover rural. But there are like multiple ways of basically addressing the connectivity needs today.
Okay. I have to ask you like the next question because in Thailand, the telecommunication study in the university or in the school, so far like we don't have this kind of like major.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, like compare with like Singapore or like in Europe, so they have like this major like telecommunication or the school itself. For the young Thai that don't have this kind of major or the school that specialize in the telecommunication, some people would ask like, oh, they should go for like study IT or like engineer. What do you think of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very specific to have a curriculum dedicated to telecom engineering on its own. So in general, there are two branches: IT itself and electrical engineering, or triple E, like for example, electrical and electric engineering. So those are the two generally accepted, let's say, engineering schools that could have maybe a minor or specialization in telecom. So I would advocate that. And I think that's probably what's going to be the most frequent in other countries. I mean, in Singapore, for example, in Nanyang Tech, in TU, there is no telecom department now. There is a triple E, electrical and electric engineering, which has some telecom courses, and I believe there could be also some postgraduate courses in that. But there is no like telecom department per se.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then can you tell us more about your expertise in telecommunication, since like you mentioned like a really big scope of like telecommunication itself. So people probably want to know or wonder like whether like you specialize in like satellite or like 4G or 5Gs, or which specialty that you choose to dive in deep into that.
Well, in the fields of study that covered the entire realm of telecom, so cable, fiber optics, satellites, communication antennas, and everything. So I was not really specialized. Now during my career, I embarked into the what we call the wireless domain, which is basically the way of delivering telecom via wireless. So that's your typical, let's say, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. So initially on the commercial side. So that's, let's say, for the fundamental aspect of it. This is the product that I was, for example, quoting or selling or like helping like deliver, and those were specifically a wireless domain, which is the biggest telecom, let's say, spending bucket at the moment.
Okay. And what are the main things that the student should be considered before deciding to study, let's say, like in telecommunication, or most likely they probably have to study like electrical engineering or something like that?
Yeah, so telecoms, if it's telecom itself, that telecom engineering, then you have engineering. Engineering means that, it has a strong like math and physics prerequisite. So first, being interested, I think, in physics and math to really learn the fundamental, the scientific method, and then also being interested in engineering, meaning like being interested in how to understand how system works, how to build that, what are the methods to make things happen, to repair, and also, in other words, to apply, let's say, physics and math to systems, because physics and math as a fundamental topics are interesting. What we learn also in engineering is how to apply this notion to real life system. So applied physics, for example, or applied math. This is what is being taught. So a prospective student would have to be interested in engineering itself. Now, like I mentioned, there is also a path to go through IT that could be potentially less heavy on engineering, but I think it really depends on the curriculum offered by universities. So it could be like IT specialized, let's say, degrees with, say, a minor in telecom that would focus on the maybe the application, the services, instead of being like, what we call lower in the stack, which means like closer to the hardware and the systems. So I would say that could be the two different ways.
Okay. Thank you for the tips. To clarify things, lots of people have like a problems to define or like explore their goal or what they want in their life, or what they're interested in. So in this case, like for you, you're interested in like telecommunication, interested in like engineering. Can we share with us like how do you find or like overcome this and find this is like telecommunication is my thing?
Well, I think as usual, it's hard to. There is no like aha moment or like wow factor. I think it's just like you connect with like a discipline. You connect with some teachers, with some like curriculum. You also like do your own research. I think doing your own research is important in order not to be like passively, let's say, swallowed by the system or by maybe the parents' impulse. So really do your own research, meet people, read a lot to really understand whether this is gonna, be good for you. Now, of course, like doing your own trials. I used to play with like computer systems and everything, and then just realize that those things will I would like that. So it's more like a gradual process of researching, being interested in aspects, reading that, and finding the right curriculum. Also, that then fuel this initial, let's say, attraction that becomes like basically part of your life. As your not only your hobby but in your future, let's say, career topic.
Yeah, it's the same like with us at the CIGAM. We often have the client walk in and tell us like, I want to go to US to study in US, but I don't know what to study, just anything in the US. So it's really challenging to help them to understand what they really like, what they really enjoy. But to be honest, like the best way to do it is like they need to know it. Like okay, this is like accounting. It's what it's a subject that they have to study. They like it or not. So the best way is like they need to get to do it or get to know it.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to like the second part, comparing Western and the Eastern education. Since like most of your study will be in France, to like accelerating to the master degrees, I would say. In that case, and then like you also chose to participate some part of your study in NTU in Nanyang in Singapore. Can you just like give us like a like briefly about like what is like a study in Europe and then what is like a study in Asia like in Singapore?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's by no means a exhaustive, let's say, description that I'm going to make since I didn't study for a long time in Asia. That was just an exchange program. I've done like the bulk of my education in France within the same, let's say, value system. But the big differences, I would say, is the way of teaching, maybe a little bit more practical back in Europe for the actual core materials. A little bit more hands-on, I would say. In general, at least in my field, also it feels less competitive. Like you're more, the studies are more like focused on developing yourself rather than just like doing rote learning and exams and then getting good grades. It felt a little bit like that. Now, the downside, I think, is languages in Europe, at least in Western Europe, France, Latin countries. Teaching languages, it's a big problem. I think the teaching is not done very well, so it's done much better over there in Asia. But again, it will be a difficult comparison to make because of the short period and the fact that it's a very different period of my life as well as an exchange program towards the end. Just basically nearly reaching my master's degree in a very different country and very different size of university.
What like most people usually assumed Europeans like as like education is better than like the one in the eastern side, like in the Asia. However, like as European yourself, why did you decide to choose to move and study in Asia?
No, I think it's been changing in the recent years. I think there's some very competitive, at least specifically talking about engineering, very competitive engineering, university in Asia and Korea, China, Singapore, and I think there is no issue in terms of, let's say, quality or like quality of curriculum, quality of teachers, and the breadth of topic that are let's say taught. But there is no, I think, competitive problem anymore. I think the US are still pretty much, still have this, Ivy League in terms of engineering, the MIT, for example. But I don't think we're like lacking crucial, let's say, knowledge, or there's a huge shortage of talents, teachers in Asia, specifically in engineering. So the situation, I think, has changed rapidly in the last couple of years. So certainly it's a much more balanced view now than it used to be in the past.
I think that is a great aspect, though. What I see lately, like in the past like decade, I would say, most of the people, like most of the students that graduate from like the MIT or like the Stanford, Harvard, Ivy League, most of them are Asian and they come back to their home countries and
right.
Yeah. So some of them would prefer to be like a professor in their home school or their home like, university. So the quality, the gap of like the quality of the education between Western and Eastern are like reduced rapidly. Like what do you say?
That's a good observation.
Many students believe that the university rankings affect their academic opportunity for further study or as well as like job opportunity. As you have yourself pursue like multiple executive programs like further of like your master degrees from the top tier universities such as like HBS like Harvard Business School and then like MIT Sloan. Do you think university ranking matters, and why is it like that?
I mean, I think it does, but I don't think we should be overly obsessed on that. Comparing across countries is also very complicated because you rarely have, let's say, open doors to, engineering university all over the world. So you would be, narrowing down your field to a certain, region or country. So it's really hard to be fair. I think I wouldn't be too obsessively focused on rankings. I think the methodology used, like the Shanghai, I think, listing, if I remember, it's arguable. What matters is to have, I think, a strong, let's say, a curriculum, quality teachers, a good set of alumni as well, and testimonials like, alumni going to, large companies, making a difference. So I don't think we should be overly, like, let's say, obsessed with that now. Nevertheless, that's quite true that China, the US, they do have some excellent calibers, some very good quality education, specifically in engineering. But at least for the US, it comes also at a cost. So I would say in Europe, at least specifically in engineering and telecom, this is a good sweet spot with, say, affordable education and pretty good quality of teaching, I would say.
What made you decide to go and study like executive programs?
That was offered through my companies, my previous company and American companies. We had the opportunity to use some budget actually to perform executive education. So this was an opportunity given by my employers, and I learned quite a lot through that.
And do you see the need to study more, or actually like you think it's pretty settled already after the master degree, and then actually you don't need it?
Well, I think it depends on initially I was not really too focused on that, but my partner also gave me a good impulse on that to tell me that you should seize the opportunity if it's available to just get some executive education. It might be beneficial. So I think this idea really grew on me. It's initially I was not really too focused on that after like 12 years of experience, but now I realize that continuous improvement, either through reading or executive education, is beneficial. Now, of course, there are like various aspects and fitting various budgets as well. Executive education, Ivy League business school or schools are have a certain costs, but they also like provide a really good value and also the access to alumni and certain cachet also on your CV.
Okay. What would be like a big difference between self-reading and then go to executive programs, apart from, let's say, alumni network and then certificate and so on?
Well, the pace, I would say the pace, so you have to have assignments every week. The one that I'm following now, it's through a virtual platform. Everything has been converted to that virtual platform because of COVID, the COVID pandemic. Otherwise, it would be on site there in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But you're looking to around 8 hours per week of work with through videos, reading, participation in forums, and weekly assignments as well. So it's really the urge. It's really the obligation to perform assignments that are graded and I think the systematic pace compared to self-reading, which would be basically at your own pace, and which sometimes may be a problem in case of lack of motivation.
That is a good point because like some of our clients come in and ask us to consult with us about this kind of thing. Like, oh, should we go for like another master? Should we go for like another executive programs? But I think it's also like good. Like if you have like really self discipline, you can like self study or self read quite a lot. That's probably good, and it saves a lot of costs as well. If you don't need a certificate or alumni network, but for those that but most people need alumni network and then the certificate for unlock the true potential and the opportunity for like a further success and so on. So they tend to go for like a master or executive programs. Some people would like, okay, MBA or master, or do I need like executive MBA or MBA? It depends on like their own experience and like what the clients or what those people would want to seek in the future anyway. But again like I think it's really good that you study like for higher education, like you just mentioned already, like okay, there is a need of like the forum to participate, the need to like complete to meet the deadline, what about like tests, what about like exam. This is like you pay to get the certain environment and a certain measure that force you to follow the step like A to C.
That's exactly right. Yes.
So let's move to like the third part, professional career development. You have been working in a related industry like telecommunication for like the past 12 years. Why are you so passionate about it and not like change to go to like any other field or industry?
I think I would, paraphrase myself again, but telecom have really saved the world in terms.
Good.
Apart from the healthcare industry, obviously, and the rest, but had helped the world continue working through telecom. And people suddenly realized that just like $30 per month for an internet connection. Finally, it's not too high of a cost to keep your job. Because you can work from home. And people suddenly, realize that having a very fat internet connection to stream Netflix in 4K during the day or to play games, so finally was something that was worth it. Now that has been through like continuous work throughout the years, and then you realize that telecom are, a big part of this world, as important as electricity or water pipes or financial services and all. And then the products themselves, it's very cutting edge engineering also, which I like, and through my education, seeing like complex system working, wireless networks, for example, extremely complex pieces of machinery, takes hundreds of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in R&D to develop products and to make them work and operate in the most remote countries, or and those, it's also the whole engineering aspect of it, is like seeing very complex pieces of machinery working and delivering like cutting edge services. I think 20 years ago we would not even dream of what we're seeing today. Doing like 4K connections over the air like that in remote part of the world. This is something that has been advancing. That's been like pretty impressive.
Okay. What is the beauty of the telecommunication? If you gonna label it like shortly.
The beauty is
since like you spent 12 years in telecommunication, you see from like internet cable now, like we aim to like 5G soon. What is the beauty? Like we see it grow like rapidly, like from like if you compare with the Apple from like the first generation and now like we expect it to have like 5-6G already. What would be like the beauty of this?
Yeah, you learn. It's changing all the time. Telecom, it's an industry that changes all the time. You learn every day. every day that you learn something new.
Okay.
Continuous improvement. It's getting more and more like financially driven now as the margins are getting really tight for providers and operators. So you see more and more like elaborate financial schemes to try to make more money and try to create more value. Deconstructing the way operators work as well. So business models can be a bit different, like separating operations from the assets, for example. So this is technically learning a lot, but also like financially speaking, and I would say business model wise, this is an industry that is that will see that already seeing like a lot of shifts, and that will keep on having shifts in the upcoming years. So this is something that is good to see. Yeah, it's not great. Like an industry stuck in the past. So this is really good.
I think like you probably like convinced like many people already to pay more attention on telecommunication, and probably like some people would show his or her interest in telecommunication already. What kind of job opportunity are available in this industry? What do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, you have like a lot of different actors. You have very large companies in telecom. My former employer was 100,000 people. Then you see a huge variety of jobs, like any company really. But I would say, business is always good. Let's say account management or head of sales or jobs like that. Engineering, I think that's something that could be intellectually pleasing, but it's now, at least for the major equipment maker, focus on very specific areas in the world, Eastern Europe or China. So people have to be in the right location as well to be doing these kind of jobs. But really, there's a lot of like non-industry specific jobs. So people in general also focus also on the company culture, on what the company has to offer in diversity and inclusion, for example, or in equality, on corporate, sustainability, all these things. And that's a whole like different set of indicator than just like going to a specific industry. But these, again, like other industry, very large, let's say, gamut of companies, from like SMEs to multinational companies, even though there are like fewer and fewer of them. And some have a very local affiliation. Operators typically are very local or regional. Few of them are just global, whereas like equipment makers are by definition global, but there are not a lot of them. You have companies like Ericsson, Nokia, Huawei, ZTE. So those are the Samsung also does that. So those, you're quite a few. You could really count them on, two hands basically. Only there are not a lot of them.
So you pursue like multiple executive programs, and how that these executive program affect like your career development? What would you say, or the opportunity in the future?
Well, it's too early to tell. I've started that last when was that, like during the peak of COVID, but it's too early to tell. I would say. I think there's probably like better visibility, better like, let's say, opportunities to grow your career, or to, when the time has come, maybe when the time has come to switch to another company, also to find like a more desirable position. I love the network actually, so we meet a lot of people during the courses. Even though obviously like doing that remotely is not as fun, is not as networking is not as strong as going on site and being physically close to people and exchanging over dinner or in class. So this is a big dampener compared to doing that like virtually, and it's probably why I don't see yet like it's tangible, let's say, value yet. The timing and COVID now. None of them are a disaster. I mean, timing will come, and COVID, it will end as well. So when travel will restart, then it's possible to get back to the previous ways of working, I think.
So could I say that to like for your own desire or like expectation, um, you expect from like study executive programs, it's probably like you expect to build more network or like expand more of like the network.
Yeah, networking and also understanding the way the faculty works, the way of working. I've never really studied like in the U.S. before, so attending courses from HBS and MIT Sloan was also a good, introduction on how do the faculty think. What is the way of teaching there over there in the U.S. How do people react? How do they present their courses? And what is their local or regional ecosystem of partners as well? At least, for the courses that I followed in MIT Sloan, they do have like people speaking specifically when I followed artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence company in the Boston area. So I hadn't heard about before, but then you have some cutting edge companies or like research companies also that that are presented to you just because the faculty is located there.
Okay.
So this is very interesting.
So in this case, like, can you give us some like short tips or like share about the experience to study in like one of the world best school, and then like also like one of the best school in like the Asia or like the continent itself. Like let's say like in terms of ranking, right? Like the Harvard and the MIT would be like rather like higher than Nanyang, but now like the Nanyang is really competitive too. So in this case, like what would you say like about the U.S. education and Eastern or like the Asian education itself?
Wow, I think it's really hard to tell because I'm not a student anymore, and then you just have to rely on the ranking. That's true that NTU in Singapore, not to be confused with NTU in Taiwan, has been climbing up pretty steeply in the engineering ranks. I would say it's pretty good value. But again, I think the top of the ranking is probably still the MIT of the world and probably Tsinghua as well in China.
In China.
And those are unlikely to change because the system is done like that, and it will keep on being like that. So you can always like have outsiders or like challengers climbing up the rank, which is what NTU did. And the stars of today are probably going to be still the stars of tomorrow unless something big happen. But this is what has happened, what will probably happen again. But again, it's really hard when you're already in the business, in the industry, in the business, and not closely following the education and not really teaching or not really taking like lessons, on campus anymore, like normal education. It is really hard to comment on that.
And the curriculum itself, or more like the coursework, or the technique, or the thing that they share with you during the class, what do you find different, or do you think it's like more like the same approach in terms of like if you compare with like this kind of Western Eastern?
Very business. It's hard to compare. My NTU program was like an exchange program. What I was with, the executive education I have in the U.S. is on artificial intelligence, so it's applied to business. So this is a really different field, I would say.
But I think probably like Sloan itself is a business school, right? And the NTU is more like a technical.
Well, for sure. You have the basics of it. NTU, at least the schools of School of Tripoli, so electrical and electric engineering. So this is an engineering department. They are teaching engineering with limited, let's say business approach. Now they do have a business school as well, and they certainly, there are certainly some gateways or some like common programs linking both. Whereas MIT Sloan, obviously this is business school attached to one of the most prestigious engineering universities. So I would say, I guess it's just a balance between hard engineering and business.
Okay.
Because nowadays I don't think we can separate both. It has
Okay.
to be doing engineering for
Sure.
business and not engineering just for engineering, because a product that does not sell is a waste of opportunity.
It's great. Although that you graduated from like a European university, you have spent most of your years of work in Asia, in countries like Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand itself. Why is it like like that? Like because of most of people like you said yourself like you had like one semester or like a short period of time that had an exchange programs in Asia. Why did you decide to like okay relocate to Asia? This is gonna be my place for the next decade.
Well, I got an opportunity in a French company that was established worldwide, like I say, Alcatel-Lucent. At that time, and it still is today, there was a program called VIE, which basically allows you to work in a French company, tax-free for 2 years, up to 2 years. And this is what I follow. So there are a few requirements. You have to be coming from a citizen of the European Union. You have to be younger than 28 years old. And it's also quite a competitive thing to apply to. So I did this program. So I worked 2 years in Malaysia as my first job. I hesitated before going, as Malaysia was not really my first country of choice. Singapore would have been more interesting to me, especially after doing this exchange program. Nevertheless, I signed. Started for 1 year. We conducted it for one additional year, so total 2 years. And then I was fortunate enough to get a local contract. To have a permanent contract in the same company, but in another country, so Thailand. And I moved there. And then, as it is customary in multinational corporations, like that one operating in 130 countries, then you always get like opportunities if you wish so to move and to go to different department and to physically move.
Okay.
And this is what I requested because it felt like good to discover new countries when you feel like connected to certain countries. And certainly the opportunity was available in the company. Not too often because it has a certain cost. So every like couple of years, let's say 3-4 years, was a good balance. This is what happened to me.
And what about Asia attract you to work and live for so long? Like some people probably like curious like oh you don't miss home, like why don't you want to move back to Europe?
Well, I mean, like telecom is it's Asia Pacific is traditionally a very dynamic market in telecom. So this is always very good to see that. Some of the most challenging as well. So it's not for the faint in heart. Just the pace, the business, the professional wise, it's very fulfilling. There's always a lot of things to see. For the country themselves, I think there's a lot of diversity in a smaller, let's say, geography. So it's a lot of countries to see, easier to travel, except now. At a time, it was relatively easy to get home, even though the annual leave is probably not as high as Europe. But it's really depends on how often people want to see their family. Certainly using video conferences, it's much easier now than it used to be in the past to meet virtually with the family rather than to have to fly back home.
Thanks to Telecom.
Exactly.
What opportunity do you foresee in Telecom, let's say, in Asia probably?
Well, I mean, 5G is telecom work in generations in generations. So you have the generations in wireless technologies, so 4G, 5G. You have generations in wired networks as well, even though it's not really available. It's not really understandable to the end user because we don't have 400 gigabit per second connections at home or or something like that. So, but this fuels the expenditures from operators, which in turns also fuel the business, the potential business for the vendors. So, I mean, but clearly, in general, the whole industry is pulled by 5G, by I think the development in artificial intelligence, by the probably what we call the upstack movement, like moving away from the hardware and going more into software and services instead of being like really like nuts and bolts and hardware, and disruption as well. I mean, you have example like in Japan, like Rakuten, for example, that have a different vision in the way to build networks, and this is something to monitor. But those are the disruptive move that could happen in the industry, already happening in certain countries, that are pretty good and to see.
Okay, let's move to like the last part of this tonight's session. What about like life in BCG? People heard about BCG. BCG is like management consulting firm, one of like the biggest one, and then it's growing like rapidly. Like this year, lots of people would ask like, okay, to listen to this session, it's like you study like telecommunication. How come that you shift to like management consultant? Where is this kind of like business school? Because like people would have like this kind of like understanding, like to go to be a consultant, especially Big Three.
Yeah.
You have to graduate from like top 10 best business school in the world, like Harvard, MIT, Stanford, in US. Can you share with us like what's happened and what made you land and change the job to the BCG?
So first of all, I think the consulting world in general, management consulting specifically, came to the realization that in order to create value for the client and to be impactful, one could not just stay generalist or just be just scratching the surface on very complex topic, because that would not be serving the client. So those companies came to the realization that specialized skills were needed, some expertise in certain topics, so subject matter expert who know the industry, the products, the way things work very well, but at the same time who are connecting the dots with what a generalist consulting team does, creating values, creating hypotheses, solving problems basically, and interwork properly with those teams. So one again to recap, a need for expertise, a need for alternative also business models. So for example, data scientists are more and more needed in complex problems now, which BCG has. Digitalization as well. So how to basically right, and how to have like in-house skills on that. And the whole like set of skills that go beyond just what generalist consultant does. And altogether, this creates. I mean, this has the potential to solve the problem of our clients in a much more impactful way, because industries are getting specific or getting really complicated, with like very different ways of working, very different business models, and one really need like specific knowledge sometimes often to help solving those problems. So this is where I come in the equation, industry experience, with also a business and consulting flair to be able to connect the dots and to work seamlessly with people.
So why did you choose to apply for a job here? Okay, like you are the one that connect all the dots, but how at that certain time that you send the application and say like, okay, I'm gonna leave like telecom, not like let's say the company that focus on telecom to management consulting firm that is like totally new for you. Like why why did you choose what you choose?
I mean, they were in need of expertise, so they contacted me. At that time, I was not really thinking of this, but after various rounds of interviews, then I started to really understand how good it could be, what could be the value that I could deliver, the value of those companies on the marketplace as well, and the kind of client that those companies were addressing. Typically, very large companies there with let's say C-suites that we could address directly. So this started like that, and I just continued and passed all the interview rounds. There were 6 of them successfully, and at that time also I just felt that it was time to change. There was a certain dissatisfaction in my in the industry, in the previous employers, to mostly be relegated to tactical tasks instead of like looking forward, having a strategical vision, really taking the time to think well and think straight about problems and building roadmaps and really solving basically solving problems instead of being in a firefighting mode or selling all the time. And this what prompted me to also carefully consider this this application and really run the interview round in a very diligent manner. Because I also wanted to change and I wanted to try something different that could increase my satisfaction, my personal satisfaction also, and change my life too.
And what opportunity do you notice for in this situation, like for you, like study telecommunication and then like you work in telecom for like over 12 years and then you jump to like management consulting? Like what would you want to share with like, let's say like the audience or like youngers, like or the potential like the BCG girl, and then in the future or like the people that want to join like the great company like BCG, like do they need to like study business or they can study anything?
Well, I mean, let's specifically talking about BCG, we're looking for unique talents. I mean, people being the true self, being like having many different skills, having very different lives, and who want more. So I wouldn't say like if one wants to go into management consulting, of course the classical way is just doing the right MBA, doing the right activities, and going through the golden way. But this is a way. This is a management consulting way. But there are like multiple ways of doing consulting, management consulting, and working with them. And I wouldn't discount alternative, let's say, education or alternative, job experience as showstoppers to go into management consulting. The gates are much more open now than it used to be in the past because the industry requires it, the clients require that, and in general because it creates more value. Diversity creates more value, creates more business opportunities as well, and this is no different than creating more diversity of skills and talents in those companies. But globally, in terms of education, so I don't think people should limit themselves that studying business is the only way to go. It's the ultimate goal and all. Probably like well-propelled myth from the parents. This is I would be a bit bearish on that. I think like other kind of educations, engineering, science, I'm a firm believer of science. So STEM jobs, STEM education at least is for me still the best way to form one's mind on how things work, how to think straight, how to think properly, as a prerequisite before doing something else like business. And I like to to advocate that still, like engineering or science in general is a great way to start like your education before embarking into something new.
I according to what you just mentioned earlier, you mentioned that like you pass all like 6 step or like 6 like interviews or like step of like to go to secure the job at the BCG, and then prior on that like they contact you
That's right.
themselves. So most of people would think that, oh, it's gonna be easy for you because like they want you, they contact you. Is it that easy?
Well, no, I think the biggest caveat is to be complacent. We're talking about like grade A employer. In general, one should never be complacent with job offers. Always take offers seriously, rehearse, prepare yourself. I mean, I spent many weekends preparing that because I did not know the way they worked. I didn't know the kind of question that was going to be asked. So soft coaching, basically. So one has to be serious about that. Asking around, checking the Glassdoor review, trying to find alumni, company alumni, trying to find a reputation, how things check thoroughly the website, the company website. So just do your own due diligence. And again, be serious about that. I think employers are really expecting also like motivated employees, and it starts right at the application time.
You mentioned like many weekends. Some people would think like I would take 4 weekends off. Do you think it's enough?
4 weekends off.
What about like can you define like many weekends in this term?
No, that was
or like the whole year weekend, like weekend for like this year and the next year. For like prepare, rehearse, like do lots of research, because
no, I mean it takes a few hours, right? So for each company, so it's not like a Herculean task. It's it's just spending the right amount of time. I don't say many weekends. That was like 3-4 weekends to prepare my coaching, to prepare my cheat sheets, to get prepared. I mean, and the whole method. So it's not like it's not an impossible undertaking. Just needs a motivation and a personal sacrifice on the personal time as well. But it's all things considered a very reasonable investment in time.
Great. So to add on that, like I think like to just apply to any university or any kind of like a job, you must take time to understand. First of all, you must understand like what is that job position asks you to do, require you to do. So read every job description, read all the requirement, read and research on that company, your future employer, your dream employer, what they expect from you as a candidate, right? The alumni too, like that would be like a good example as well. So to be honest, like everyone can really do this by themselves, but again, like Florian already addressed it, that is like cost a lot of time, a lot of investment in terms of like time investment, a lot of energy and effort anyway. So for some people that would like to enhance and manage this time and kind of investment, they probably can choose like the agency to help them to add on, like to polish like the CV, the cover letter, the portfolio itself, try to get into their network, the agency network, to the notable alumni in those particular university or the company itself. But again, like they won't have like the influence over the company or the university decision anyway. But at least you would get like the opinions and the view and the perspective of those people that already in or used to be in that particular institution or organization. That save a lot of time and also increase the chance.
That's right. Having the right method, the right people, not to waste time, and also not to have like unrealistic expectation with the your own level or your documentation. Also, sure, this is a good reality check, saving time, but and polishing things. I mean, very very clearly, yes.
Because like what I heard is like in the big three or the big four itself, even though like they recruit like the best candidate to employ the best candidate. They still need to consult or pay to consult like the expert in the particular industry.
Correct.
So this thing would be you still need the expertise to come and help you in a specific way, because again, like you can't buy the time, right? Can you describe the professional development and advancement opportunity here at the BCG?
Oh, this is one of the fortes of the company in the career development. The company is really investing a lot of time and effort to develop us, to correct our mistakes and to correct our traits of characters that are perceived wrong. We are having like evaluations all the time, but in more like in a positive manner. What we call areas for development, where we focus on a positive way of solving problems or solving some of the shortcomings of our shortcomings. So how to find ways to improve our behavior, our like perceived flaws, and certainly very good quality education, very good quality internal trainings, and with a lot of like external like participants also. And this is quite a good development opportunity. This is certainly way better than what I've been used in the past, and this is I think some of the characteristics of the top grade consulting firms in general.
So what were the most challenging experience you have encountered throughout your time working at the BCG, and how do you overcome that?
I think working every time you're trying to solve a problem for a client, it gets a little bit more difficult because you don't have the prerequisites in consulting skills, or you have your expertise that is highly valued by the consulting team and everybody around, but you still feel that you're just not adequate. And then of course we have like internal training, you have a lot of coaching and mentoring to help you overcome your perceived weaknesses or improve. So I've been like studying a lot in the company to try to get better, documenting my areas for development, and trying to track my improvements also quarter by quarter, like by semester by semester, I would say, to try to overcome that. So this has just still like a learning journey. This is complicated, but I would say the problems that we also solve are very complicated. So probably not the only one, but this has been quite complicated, I would say.
So what are the benefits of working for a big company such like BCG?
Well, employees benefits, access to very high quality, high caliber people. So it's a lot of people who think like well and who think fast. Access to a whole variety of clients as well, and this has been quite a game changer compared to previous companies.
And the previous company is not small either. It's a big one as well.
Yeah, it's another MNC, so multinational corporation. But again, a network equipment provider as opposed to consulting firms who are by definition like partnership companies with very different ways of working than public companies.
Okay. Apart from like its reputation, BCG reputation, how does BCG differ from other company you have worked with before? Okay, you already touched upon that a little bit, but can you go a little bit deeper? The first one would be like the previous one would be public company, and the BCG would be like more like a partnership. Some people was like, really like the management consultant firm is like partnership and how they operate inside this kind of gigantic international partnership company.
Well, it's a world on its own. It's very different than privately held or publicly listed companies. It's hard to describe like that, but since the partners or the owner of the companies, and like thousands of them, you also interact with them very differently. It's like as if you were interacting with the managing director of a company, but on a gigantic scale. So this is a very different ways of working. Instead of having employees, you interact with partners, so the owner of the company basically. So this is very very different way of working. You feel more responsible because they expect a lot from you as well. Whereas in a normal company, you have like various layers and various like a lot of inertia, maybe less responsibility than in consulting with partnership. This is very different ways of working. You feel much more empowered and but also more responsible. I would say in consulting.
So like some people probably like wonder, okay, like in one country they probably have like 10 partners or like 20 partners, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
How they gonna manage partner? Do they have like a tier of the partner too? Like junior partner have to listen to the senior partner, and you climb up to like managing partner, and then you would be like the king of the country or something like that.
Yeah, I mean you have like various levels of. The top echelon is called managing director and partner in BCG. Then after that, you have a seniority. It's not really visible internally to other like non-partner people. But if somebody has like a long tenure as a partner and becomes a senior partner and becomes basically the overlord of a country and all, but you have very few senior partner, more partners, and generally as you have like this kind of like untaught hierarchy between senior and non-senior, but at the same time, a managing director and partner is a managing director and partner, so it's always on top of the company, and most of them will specialize in specific industries as they become managing director and partner. So only a few of them will just be like swinging between different industries, which we call practice areas. Most of them will just like be active in 2 or 3, let's say, practice areas maximum. I would say.
Since like we all know that BCG is like international company, let's say, so they have like overlords of like each country already, and how would they manage like between countries in this term?
Well, yeah, it's hard to
like who has to listen to who in this term?
Well, it's complicated in consulting. You have a lot of people giving their opinion, their advice. It's always a consensus. You have projects. You don't have like line management in consulting, but you do have like seniority. So you do have to listen and let's say obey with but at the same time like respectfully disagree if you feel like doing so. But there's still a huge sensation. There's still a huge hierarchy there in consulting, even more than normal companies, because those are the owners. So that's how it works.
What piece of advice would you give to the young professional who want to work, a dream to work in like it's kind of like highly reputable companies such as like BCG or like other management consulting firms, or like top tier company like Google or like Apple? What quality and expertise should they prepare and should they equip themselves? Or like not just only like their technical skill or like their certificate or their degrees, what about like their soft skill as well?
Yeah, I mean, generally impressed. I mean, extracurricular activities, trying something new, joining a cause, launching your own business, or believing in things and trying to make an impact. It's always well appreciated. In terms of skills, you're not only technical, but I think acquiring like specific skills on trendy topics like AI, for example, is always like a good thing to have on the CV. But some tactical, let's say, touches like that, without forcing yourself. I mean, I think people can really detect if you're being phony, on things. So it's important that you also believe in what you're doing, without like basically trying to boost up the CV with some tasks that are not to be mentioned.
Okay, I think we come to the end already. Thank you, Florence, for being here tonight, for your time and consideration. I believe that like our audience would have like inspired by your experience and learn a great deal from you. Anyway, like let's take a look at the QA
Sure.
session.
Well, glad to have
Okay.
to have had the opportunity to talk. So thanks for inviting.
Thank you. I have like three questions from like the audience. The first one would be, as technology has been largely replacing some job traditionally done by humans, what major or industry do you think that cannot be easily replaced by technology? Is it telecom is a really great example in this term?
Well, I wouldn't think of industries in general, but more like type of jobs and skills. Like I mentioned in telecom, depending on the kind of company, you would have jobs that will be changed by AI, for example, and those jobs will disappear, and the corresponding people will probably need to be retasked or to find like different jobs and to be retrained. But I wouldn't think of industries in general. Each industry will have their own like path to get modernized and to get digitalized and to have like the access of the advent of AI. But I would more think of the in types of companies and types of skills that exist in the companies, like lawyers, for example. Very clearly, that's something that is needed in big companies, every big company, and this will tend to disappear.
The second question: in pursuing a good career, which is more important, prior work experience or university education?
In pursuing a good career,
Like let's say like some people would not even have bachelor degree yet and then take a gap year, or some people just graduate like the bachelor, they think they to get into like post-grad, get a master right away.
Well, I mean, it's always like it's always a bit difficult because with having a degree is probably a good prerequisite for the big, I mean, for the best companies that are ranked internationally. But at the same time, diversity of opinion, diversity of career is also appreciated. It really depends on the kind of job. If I were to apply for the pure management consultant in BCG, it would be very difficult for me to get in, or near impossible. But because they needed that expertise and hired expert consultants, then my experience in the industry was suddenly like much more relevant than my education and analytical skills. Of course, education was also a prerequisite. They were looking for bachelor or masters as a prerequisite. So there's always like minimum slab or minimum prerequisites to reach depending on the types of companies.
Thank you. And the third question is like, for every job seekers, should an individual decide to earn a high salary and take precedent over his or her own interest in the job? Like some people are like, okay, I need to make like lots of money, and then like I can just do whatever that they tell me to do, or probably I'm not even interested in that. What do you think about this?
I would strongly discourage that. More believe in purpose. If you have to feel that you're creating value and that your job that you're making is valuable over money, very clearly. So purpose for me is number one. Money is secondary.
Okay. I think we don't have like any more like questions. Okay, I think it's good.
Very good.
Yeah, I think it's good. So is there any more questions that you want to ask me or Florian? You can just leave the comment and then we will get back to you like through the email, let's say, or like with the messenger. Thank you very much, Florian, and thank you everyone.
Thanks for the questions.